Welcome back to the Bryan Devore Connection. I'm your host, Bryan Devore. Pre-planning your legacy. Well, there's a lot that goes into that. It's obviously important to talk about your legacy and how you do want to pre-plan for that. So here to talk to us today about that program and how it works for you is my friend Susan. Susan is with Dignity Memorial. Susan, thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Bryan. I'm really glad to be here.
Good. So you and I have known each other for several years.
Long time.
In a different world, but you've been through a couple different companies about in the senior space.
Yes.
And you've landed here kind of something special, talking about pre-need and planning for your legacy. So what does that mean in the context of what you do?
Well, what I really like to do is to teach people about what they don't know. Because when you don't know what you don't know, it can be really hurtful.
Right.
So when I want to talk about legacy, that is, what do you want people to remember about you? But it's also, what do you want your family to experience at the end of your life? And that is not just before you pass away, but after you pass away and all of the things that must be done and handled. I can tell you one of the most loving things my mom did and a beautiful legacy that she left for us was she planned. She purchased things. She wrote things down. We knew so much of what she wanted. That was a legacy of love. Well, unfortunately, other people will say, I'm not going to be there. I don't care. My kids can do whatever they want. Well, to which I say in my head, not out loud,
Yeah.
But do you like your family?
Right.
Because the thing is, you don't know how much anxiety that creates. Even the closest family can begin to bicker and fight in that planning room in an at-need situation after that person has passed away. And that's not a legacy that you want to leave. That is definitely not the taste and the memory you want to leave in those people's minds, because if you had any love for them at all, you want to make sure that not just emotionally, but financially, that they are taken care of. And that's a two-pronged thing when you're talking about your legacy and pre-planning.
Right. Yeah. So you're right about that. So many people, I see them in crisis mode, and people don't really act or react very well in crisis mode. But when you're pre-planning, you get to make the decisions, and you get to lock in the cost. So let's talk about the nuts and bolts a little bit about pre-need and how it works.
Okay. So the best thing about it is, and this might sound really strange to you, but you can actually cost compare when you are in a position to pre-plan, right? So when you're in a situation where hey, it's going to happen to everybody. I know what I want. You can go to, maybe there's two different places that you are looking to choose from. I like this place, I'm not sure what they cost. Well, you don't ever try and guess how much it's going to cost to fix your car, right? You go to the professional and you let them look at your car and let them tell you, this is how much it's going to cost. And there's certain things that you may know or not know about what has to happen. Well, that's the same thing when it comes to pre-planning. People don't know everything that's involved. So when you go into pre-plan, one of the first things that they do is, by law, they must give you a cost list so that you can know what is going to cost you, what I might want, where I might want it, the style, what is my religion and what does that dictate. There are certain religions that don't approve of, say, cremation. Therefore, you know right off the bat, this is going to cost a little bit more because it's going to be something that has to do with having a casket and the burial. Cremation doesn't always do that. There's so many different points to this. So when you go in and you're talking to somebody that's a professional that can listen to everything you say, and when you go in, you can go in and say, I have a budget. What can I do for this? People don't think to do that either. I only want to spend X. Well, I can tell you right now that the median range for just the mortuary services, so this doesn't include if you're going to utilize cemetery services, which not all people do. So if you're just looking at mortuary services, median cost across the nation is about $9,000.
Yeah, wow.
So you have to think about what I'm going to do. And that's 2020 cost, okay? I was just speaking with a woman who had told me, Susan, 15 years ago, I was looking at doing a family plot. I talked to my kids, I talked to my family, my brother, my sister, my husband. We kept talking. I talked to the cemetery, I talked to this guy, I thought about it some more. 15 years goes by, and all of a sudden I said, this is ridiculous, I'm going to take care of this now. Well, it was almost twice as much.
That's the cost of waiting.
And that's the problem. If you lock in everything now, and I'm not just saying the plot, because some people think, well, I bought the plot, I'm good. There's so much more that you actually can plan for and pay for, and you can even make payments.
That's powerful. That's super helpful.
It's really helpful. So that part of things, that means that at the end, if you had a life insurance policy, sometimes they're not easy to get a hold of right when you need them. And if you did not pre-plan, you're talking about an at-need situation, Brian. And what happens then is you have to pay everything before that service.
Yeah.
You don't have
the luxury of waiting for the insurance.
You don't have the availability of making payments so if you don't get that life insurance premium before that happens, how are you going to come up with that money?
Right.
So I had this one family who told me, and this was just so heartbreaking to me. Their mom said, I don't care what you do, I don't care what you do, I don't care what you do, except don't cremate me. I don't want you to cremate me. Please don't cremate me. To which they said, of course, Mom, of course, Mom. But they didn't plan. They didn't take the steps to make payments and make those arrangements. So then what happened was when she passed away, she didn't have anything. Her two daughters were not in a financial position to come up with $9,000 or even $5,000. So they ended up having to cremate her. And to this day, when I was speaking with that woman, you could see the pain on her face. That's what I'm talking about legacy. Don't leave that legacy.
Right. You don't want to leave your children in that lurch when you have the opportunity to lock in the cost.
Exactly.
And I know that, someone who may be watching this, well, I'm a veteran, so the VA will take care of it, but that's not the case.
Well, that's half the case.
Okay.
And again, this is where those assumptions can really hurt you. Misconceptions can really hurt you. When you're a veteran, first of all, thank you. But secondly, you feel like the VA is going to take care of this, right? And that's what they'll tell their family. Don't worry about anything. The VA is going to take care of this. Well, that's only half true. The VA does take care of the plot, the liner, the liner container. They take care of the marker, a flag, and a very brief ceremony. Depending on the VA cemetery you're dealing with, many of them only give you 30 minutes, and it's military, they mean it. So if you want more of a service, you want to have a more elaborate or lengthy reception or whatever the case may be, you're not going to be having that at the VA cemetery. And they will obviously also give you a flag. So one thing I didn't mention there is any kind of mortuary service. So you've got the cemetery services covered. You deserved it, they do it, God bless them for it. But all of this
yeah, exactly.
has to still be taken care of. And so many, many families come into us and say, the VA sent me here. I thought everything was taken care of, but they said that I need to take care of this. And so, a few $1,000s later that they weren't expecting to pay and making decisions while in their grief,
Right.
which I really want to make a point about this. This is the other half of that situation, that emotional part that we were talking a little bit about already. And that is, when you're in that situation, when your loved one is in that situation, they are at the least place, the worst place, I should say, to make those decisions. There may be some guilt because maybe you just had harsh words with them, you didn't know they were going to pass away, you didn't get a chance to resolve whatever that was, or you had a wonderful, wonderful relationship and you're just grieving so hard and you love them so much. And so they deserve the gold casket and the doves and the, everything. And if it was my mom, she'd be up in heaven going, don't you dare spend that on me.
Don't spend that on me.
Yeah. But then about 3 months later, when that grief cloud lifts just a little bit, you've realized how much money you've spent. And this is how the funeral services get such a bad rap, because they'll say, well, they made me do this, or they probably told you so many things that you didn't hear.
Can't process.
You can't process when you're grieving like that. They gave you all the options because you didn't know what you wanted. You picked those. But in your grief, you need somebody to maybe blame a little bit afterwards because you did spend much more than you should have or would have.
Yeah, and people they can't make good decisions in crisis mode.
Absolutely not.
You're better off pre-planning.
Yeah.
Even bring the family in to discuss it with them.
Yeah.
But it's so critical to do that pre-planning. The information for Dignity Memorial is on screen. Go to their website. You can see all their locations, where they are. There's going to be one near you. And all of them offer the pre-planning services. You can also call the phone number as well. If you are listening to this on Spotify or your favorite podcast channel, obviously you can't see it, but it is in the text below in the caption. Susan, I really appreciate you coming here and sharing what you do and how important it is as you're leaving a legacy for your loved ones.
It's so important. And thank you, Bryan, for letting me kind of open that door for some people to talk about this with their families. Just start the conversation.
That's it. Thank you.